Temptation doesn't come in screaming, waving red flags. It's low-key creeping in, subtle and quiet. Even worse, when you complain a lot, your mind starts seeing problems everywhere. It's like a cancer spreading suddenly. Life is heavier, life feels harder than it actually is because you're stuck in a negative cycle. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending we don't get angry. It's about learning to control that anger rather than letting it control us. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we are diving into something that creeps in unnoticed and challenges our self control. Let's get into it. I came across this quote in a short video online that really stuck with me. It says, just because you can resist the devil doesn't mean you should hang out with him. If you don't want temptation to follow you, don't act like you're interested. It's much easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. Facts. Temptation comes in different forms, and we all think we're strong enough to resist it. Let's be real. A lot of times we flirt with temptation, we play with fire, thinking we won't get burnt. We say, I got this, or I'm strong enough. But then before we know it, we're in trouble. We're in a situation we never intended to be in. So, why do we play with fire? Have you ever noticed how many times we put ourselves in a situation we know aren't good for us? Maybe it's hanging around with bad influence people. Maybe it's keeping things in our life that we know are distractions. Maybe it's justifying little compromises because it's not that bad. But here's the thing, temptation doesn't come in screaming, waving red flags. It's it's low-key creeping in, subtle and quiet. It's a reminder from an old habit, a familiar call to a place you promised to leave behind, a small excuse to step just a little closer to the edge. And we think, I can handle it. But if you're constantly testing your self control, you're exhausting yourself over a fight that leads nowhere. Now, some people think avoiding temptation is a sign of weakness. Like, if I was really strong, I could be around it and not give in. But that's pride talking. And pride, that's exactly what gets us in trouble. Think about it. Think about it like this. If you don't want to fall off a cliff, don't walk near the edge. If you don't want to get burned, don't play with fire. If you don't want to slip, don't stand where it's wet. It's not about fear, it's about wisdom. The smartest way to win against temptation is to never let it get close enough to be an option. A big part of why temptation follows us is because deep down, we act like we're interested. We keep doors open just in case. We entertain thoughts we should be shutting down. We give certain people access to our time and energy, even when we know they lead in the wrong direction. It's like someone going on a diet but still scrolling through food delivery apps late at night. That's dangerous. You say you don't want it, but you keep checking to see what's available. Eventually, that craving wins. Let's talk about solutions. Because it's one thing to say, stay away from temptation. But how do we actually do that? Be honest with yourself. If you keep getting caught in the same cycle, stop pretending it's not a problem. Recognize what tempts you and why. Cut off easy access. If there's something or someone that constantly pulls you into the wrong mindset, create distance. Don't give it space in your life. Surround yourself with the right influences. The people around you matter. If your circle encourages bad choices, It's time to rethink who's in your inner circle. Strengthen your why when you know why you're avoiding something. It becomes easier to walk away. Focus on what you're gaining, not just on what you're giving up. Replace, don't just remove. Don't just cut things out. Fill that space with something better. If you're walking away from a bad habit, replace it with something positive. If you're stepping back from a toxic relationship, invest in friendships that build you up. You don't have to prove you're strong by staying near what tempts you. The smartest people, the ones who actually beat temptation, don't fight it, they avoid it. They set boundaries, walk away, and don't keep the door open just in case. So, here's the real question: what in your life are you keeping too close? What are you pretending to be strong enough for when you should be walking away completely? Because strength is not about proving you can resist, it's about having the wisdom to know you don't need to be there in the first place. Okay, next one. This one is from Robert Greene. Never complain, never explain. And what it means is don't complain about life. Don't explain what you're doing or why you're doing it. Just do it. By whining and complaining, all you're doing is making people think bad things about you, looking weak. And when you complain a lot, you have a mindset where everything is kind of a potential complaint. Stop whining and stop explaining yourself and just do things in the world and let your actions speak for themselves. Life is full of challenges, and it's easy to fall into the habit of complaining about things or explaining why we do what we do. Let's be honest, complaining doesn't fix anything. It might feel good for a moment, but in the end, it just makes you look weak. People don't respect someone who always talks about their problems. They respect someone who finds solutions. Even worse, when you complain a lot, your mind starts seeing problems everywhere. It's like a cancer spreading. Suddenly, life is heavier, life feels harder than it actually is because you're stuck in a negative cycle. So instead of focusing on what's wrong, focus on what you can do to make things better. I know a lot of people who feel the need to explain and justify their actions, hoping to gain respect or prove that they're doing something meaningful. They would say, hey, bro, you know what? I'm doing this. Even without me asking, they open up looking for validation. But the truth is, you don't really have to explain yourself. Respect is not earned through words alone, it's earned through actions. Think about the people you admire the most. Do you think they spend time complaining about their problems? Do they constantly explain themselves to others? No. Doers know exactly what they need to do. They simply get things done. They move in silence, staying focused on their goals without seeking validation. They they actually rarely share to people. They rarely share their plans because they understand that envy and negativity can come from others. Instead, they protect their energy by keeping their vision to themselves and letting their success speak for them. Instead of complaining about unfair situations, they worked to overcome them. Instead of explaining their decisions to doubters, they let their success speak for itself. That's what makes them strong and respected. By following this mindset, you gain control over your life. You stop worrying about what others would think and start focusing on what truly matters, which is getting things done. When you stop complaining, you focus on solutions. When you stop explaining, you move with confidence. And when you just do things, people start respecting you more. So the next time you feel like complaining, ask yourself, what can I do to fix this? And the next time you feel like explaining, think first, do I really need to? Or should I just let my results do the talking? The answer is simple: stop talking, start doing. And for the last one, I want to share with you one of my favorite stories of all time: the nails in the fence. Let me read it. There was once a little boy with a bad temper. He struggled to control his emotions, and every outburst came like a storm: quick, forceful, and destructive. His father, noticing this pattern, decided to teach him a lesson. He handed the boy a bag of nails and said, every time you lose your temper, hammer a nail into the back of the fence. The first day, the boy hammered 37 nails into the wooden fence. 37 times he let his anger get the best of him. 37 moments of frustration. 37 instances where he allowed his emotions to control his actions. But as the day passed, he began to notice something. The act of hammering those nails, it took effort. It was exhausting. He started to realize that it was easier to control his temper than to keep driving those nails into the wood. Slowly, the number of nails hammered each day lessened. Fewer and fewer. He was learning. Then one day, the boy didn't lose his temper at all. Not once. Proudly, he ran to his father and told the good news. His father smiled and gave him a new challenge. Now, his father said, for every day that you hold your temper, pull one nail out of the fence. So the boy did. Day after day, as he gained control over his emotions, he pulled out a nail. It took time, patience, and discipline. But finally, the day arrived when all the nails were gone. With a sense of accomplishment, he told his father. The father took his son's hand and led him to the fence. You've done well, my son, he said, but look at the holes left behind. The fence will never be the same. When you say things in anger, they leave a scar just like these. You can put a knife in a man and pull it out, but no matter how many times you say, I'm sorry, the wound is still there. The boy stared at the fence, his heart sinking as he finally understood. He looked up at his father and said, I hope you can forgive me, Father, for the holes I put in you. His father smiled gently and said, of course I can. This story hits hard, doesn't it? Because it's real. We've all been the boy with the hammer at some point. We've all let anger dictate our words, our reactions, and our behavior. We've all left nails in someone else's fence. And here's the thing: when we're in the heat of the moment, it it feels justified. Anger feels powerful. Words fly out of our mouths, and we think that once we cool down, we can just apologize and move on. But the truth is, an apology might remove the nail, but it doesn't erase the hole it leaves behind. Think about it. Have you ever had words said to you that you still carry? Things you heard years ago, but somehow They've stuck with you. Maybe it was a parent, a teacher, a friend, or even a stranger. Words that made you feel small, unworthy, or broken. Words that left holes in your confidence, in your heart. You know, when I first started acting and landed my first job, I had no idea what I was doing. I was, what, 17 years old, not really serious about anything, including my work as an actor. I didn't study my script, didn't prepare, and when the time came, it showed. So, so the director lost his patience and cursed at me right there in front of everyone. I know it was my fault, but his words stuck with me. Even now, I can't forget them. That was like, what, 16 years ago? That moment left a mark, like holes in the story. Now, let's flip that around. Have you ever said something in anger that you later regretted? Have you ever seen the hurt in someone's eyes after you lashed out? Maybe they forgave you. Maybe they even said, it's okay. But deep down, you know, those words left a mark. This story is not about suppressing emotions, it's not about pretending we don't get angry. It's about learning to control that anger rather than letting it control us. Because when we act out of anger, we trade a temporary sense of relief for long term damage. It's easier to react than to restrain. It's easier to lash out than to pause. But just like in the story, as we practice self control, it gets easier. The number of nails we drive in the people around us starts to lessen. And here's the beautiful part: when we learn to manage our anger, we don't just protect others from being hurt, we also protect ourselves from becoming the person who leaves scars on the people we love. I want you to think about your relationships, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your partner. Are there fences you've hammered nails into? Are there holes that still remain? If you have hurt someone with your words, don't just assume time will erase it. Take responsibility. Apologize not just with words, but with changed behavior. Show them that you are aware of the impact your words had. And most importantly, commit to being more mindful in the future. And if you are someone carrying scars from words spoken to you, know this: you are not defined by the hurt someone else inflicted. Scars may remain, but healing is always possible. There's a saying: your pain is probably not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So here's my challenge for you. The next time you feel anger is rising, imagine the fence. Picture the nails in your hand. Ask yourself, is this something I want to leave behind? Because the difference between a strong, unbroken fence and one full of holes comes down to one thing: the choice to pause before we speak. We cannot take back the past, but we can shape the future. And that future is built not with nails and anger, but with patience and understanding and words that heal instead of harm. As Epictetus wisely said, it is essential that we not respond impulsively. Take a moment before reacting, and you will find it is easier to maintain control. That's all for now, guys. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who could use the reminder. And if you want more, hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate your support. I'll see you guys in the next one.